Greetings. Welcome to Eric's Angle, the podcast for Iowa State mathematics students. I am your host, Eric Weber, chair of the Department of Mathematics at Iowa State University. Today's guest is a 2023 graduate of our program, having earned a major in mathematics and a minor in data science. Her name is Meredith Tucker, and she is currently a data analyst specialist at John Deere Intelligent Solutions Group. She says that when she came to Iowa State, she knew that she could do anything with mathematics. A very true statement. Please welcome Meredith Tucker. Hi, Meredith. Welcome to Eric's Angle.
Hi.
So why don't we start off with having you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I recently graduated this last spring from Iowa State. I majored in mathematics with applications in statistics, and I minored in data science. And, that's, the math educational stuff about me, but I'm from Strawberry Point, Iowa. I love hiking, things like that, animals. And I currently work at John Deere in part of their rotational program for data analytics. And I'm in the ISG department. So it's pretty interesting.
So how did you pick studying mathematics?
So when I started, I actually had no clue what I wanted to do career-wise, but my sister went into mathematics before me, and I really loved my calculus classes in high school. So, and I love the problem-solving aspects. So that's kind of why I went into mathematics because I knew I could apply it to anything. And then once I was in the mathematics program is when I took a data science class, and I kind of went from there.
So you enjoyed the data science as sort of like an application of what you were learning in your math classes.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely a really good balance between the math classes and then the coding classes. The logic really, it flowed well, connecting between them.
Mm-hmm. And with your current position, like what does the balance look like in terms of coding and non-coding type activities?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I definitely feel like the math part helped me a lot in like my longer projects where I'm having to do quite a bit of research. One of my recent project was a Weibull analysis. So I had to go through and, research the different, logic behind it, the different models that are out there, that sort of thing. And the math part really helped me understand, the background behind everything. And then the coding stuff, you have to be able to code it out on the computer. Um, but yeah, I found the balance of what I took at Iowa State really good as far between, the coding and the logic aspects. I feel I was able to understand coding really easily as far as after taking so many proofs classes, because it's pretty similar because you have to write down almost every single step you want to follow to get to the solution.
And what does coding look like? Is this writing scripts in Python or is it something
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, so it's not quite what you would maybe imagine as far as, like creating an app as you would think, like computer science stuff. For me, it's mostly creating and running models. So I use a variety of coding languages. In my current position, I use Python, PySpark, which is like a derivative of Python, SQL. I think there's more. I've used I've already said SQL. I've used something called CQL, which is different than SQL. So, which SQL SQL. So it's been very interesting that you get to run more statistics-based code rather than, building code, if that makes sense. Yeah, if
Mhm.
building code is like creating apps or things like that.
It's not that you're writing, like what you're saying, you're not writing software. You're writing code that runs the algorithms, which does the mathematics for you, basically, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot of it includes data cleanup and, what function can we put on this data to normalize it? And, where is our numbers going wrong? And kind of using math that way
Mm,
to get to our solutions.
nice. So what would you say to our current students as far as preparing for interesting jobs in industry?
I mean, for preparing for jobs in industry, I definitely think if you want to get an interesting job or something like that, I always recommend when I was applying to jobs, I did so many different interviews, like so many, just for practice, even if I wasn't super interested in the job. And you definitely get the interview pattern down pretty good by the time you get to the interviews you really want for the jobs you are super interested in. But other than that, you kind of talk to your professors, you talk to your classmates. That's one thing I was a big fan of, like in my statistics and math classes. I find that the people in those classes are the most willing to talk with you and create conversations. So you're like, oh, where did you intern? Or where do you work? Or what's your plan? And it's very helpful to use that to kind of build an idea of, where you want to go.
And what's been the biggest surprise maybe so far? I should mention that you just graduated from our program uh I guess 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
This spring. What's been the biggest surprise so far working in a non-academic environment?
I have to think. I think my biggest surprise is how much research, like not like academic research, I'm having to do. So I've been reading more scholarly articles than I expected to be reading. I was thinking, it'd be more of like, okay, task one, code this, create this, where it's more of, okay, research the math behind this so that we can create this. Um, so I guess my surprise is that it's more similar to the academic stuff than what I was expecting.
Fascinating. Yeah, I have this sense that companies are trying to create more of an academic experience for their employees. Like you see the Silicon Valley companies trying to create that type of environment, and I guess it's coming to more local companies here in Iowa as well. So
Mhm.
that's interesting. I assume that appeals to you.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely nice. Part of working there, you get like a Coursera membership and it's encouraged to take, whatever classes you want on there. So you can grow like your knowledge within, whether it's your section of the business or pretty much anything. So that's been a lot of fun. Sometimes if I have free time and after my work day is done, I'm like, oh, this looks like an interesting topic. Let me quick take this course. But
And that's what you do for fun.
sometimes, yeah, there's not a lot to do around here.
Okay. So you mentioned that when you came to Iowa State, you weren't really sure what you had in mind, and then you started studying math,
hmm
and then you did a couple of internships or co-ops.
Yep.
And so how how does your current experience after graduation, how does it compare to what you were thinking, halfway through your program, say?
It was really interesting for me because, my freshman, sophomore, and some of my junior year were very, it was COVID. So when I came like straight out of my freshman year, nothing was happening. There were so few internships I feel going around. But my sophomore year, I ended up taking a co-op, an unplanned co-op, my spring semester. So I ended up taking a semester off, and I was absolutely terrified to do so. Because I was like, oh my gosh, my life planned is I didn't plan for this. This is unexpected, and I had like 5 days to give them notice. Um, and based on that, it's fairly similar to what I worked on when I worked my co-op at Collins Aerospace. In that position, I was working supply chain. They didn't really have any data science implemented in their supply chain yet. So they kind of brought me in to kind of give that push and be like, oh, we have, some data science ideas to create. So it's pretty similar to that. It is fairly different, subject topic wise. And it kind of just devolved to, my next internship was data science, or it was in data science, but it was for the supply chain department at John Deere. And now I'm in quality analytics at John Deere in data science. But it's been fairly similar. It's definitely interesting how your tasks are vary so much between different departments within a company. Um, because before I was working with like Neo4j, and I'm trying to remember the term for the type of like a graph database with like the nodes and the edges. Um, and now I'm working like with Weibull and more like math related. Well, I know they're all math, but um, more analysis, I would say, or like regression based models. So
So you had this database you said that was a graph model of some sort. And
yeah, it was an interesting
so
project to
you
work
actually
on.
knew what a graph was.
Yeah, I know. And it was before I took graph theory. So I had no clue what was going on with that project. I had 2 weeks to, by the time you got access, or I got access to the program I needed for it, and I had to use Cipher query language. That's the difference between SQL and CQL. SQL is sequence query language, and then SQL is Cipher query language. It's very directional, but I had like 2 weeks to get this project, pumped out. And it was interesting not knowing anything about graph theory and working on a graph-based model and that sort of thing.
But there's actual math out there. That's kind of the point, right? There's actual math out in industry. To some extent, I think even me and my colleagues as faculty members, we don't really think about or understand what level of mathematics there are out in industry context and industry settings.
Hmm.
And I think it probably is good for our students to hear that there is actually this mathematical content out there. So it gives them something interesting to do.
Oh yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially my team. There's like three other people on my team. My team is like of 12 people. At least three of them have math backgrounds, so they're getting their master's in math, or they have their master's or undergraduate in mathematics. And part of my team is, well, so my team is the quality analytics, and our sister team is metrology, which is the science of measurement. So making sure all of our parts are just right. And so every once in a while, they'll pose a question of like, what mathematically can we do to make sure the range of this part's in the right size? And so we occasionally get together and have those mathematical conversations of debating the best method to, create these
Mm,
ideas.
that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say to our students as far as preparing for careers?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said before, I did a lot of job interviews, walking around career fairs, things like that. I know it's a side piece, but if you're ever going to go to the in-person career fair, bring it, and you're, wearing uncomfortable dress shoes, bring a spare pair of shoes. You always think you can make it wearing your dress shoes the whole time. You're going to end up walking barefoot back. I've seen so many people do it. I've done it. It's just don't overestimate yourself in the shoe department. But I think the best thing that you can do is the best piece of advice I've gotten for my career, and I think you can apply it as a student to a degree, is explore the company horizontally as much as possible. So let's say for me, math major, I took a lot of courses that were more abstract and then more applicable, and then, like graph theory. So you get that degree of knowledge across different topics within like the same area of study. And that way you're more prepared for when you get into a company and you might not know where exactly the logic in that team might fall. Um, so it kind of works out well that way for me anyway, because like I said before with my last project, it was, graph theory based, and now it's, um, statistical analysis based. So I think the best way to prepare is kind of, at least still within your major or even outside of your major, take a chance and sign up for the classes that are slightly outside what you would normally pick as like your ideal interest.
Hmm, that sounds like good advice.
Yeah. Sorry if it was long-winded.
No? All right, Meredith, it's been great talking to you, and I appreciate you appearing on Eric's Angle.
Of
Any
course.
final comments?
Not that I can think of. At least for me, I suggest finding a job that offers a rotational program of some sort. So for me, I get to switch to a new position every year within the data science community at John Deere. So I recommend researching your company and seeing if your company offers those programs for new employees, because I think it's a really great opportunity to explore your company and learn that way.
Well, thanks again, Meredith.
Thank you.